We are a happy community in this city.
The dead vote often in Northern Ireland.
The people in Northern Ireland have all the civil rights they need. They have freedom of speech, freedom of everything. They need no civil rights. The civil rights are here for them.
280 years ago, the Protestant rulers of this city withstood a siege for 105 days. Today they face another, from within.
The time has scarce gone round, boys, 200 years ago, when the traitors on old Derry's walls their faces dare not show, when James and all his rebel band came up to Bishop's Gate, with heart and hand and sword and shield we crossed into retreat.
This is the unionist Mecca. This city is. This is the place where their battle was fought, the siege of Derry in the 17th century. For them, their tradition was born here. The walls symbolize their whole tradition, and they feel this enormous psychological need to hold on to Derry.
These people are gathering to protest. They're British, but with a difference. Over a quarter of them cannot vote in local elections. Their government, the Protestant Unionist government of Northern Ireland, can subject them to house arrest and detention without trial, relics of the carving up of Ireland nearly 50 years ago. This is Londonderry, Protestant stronghold of the north, a city of religious rivalry, housing shortages, sweeping unemployment, and a mounting bitterness over civil rights. These are the Irish, with their backs to the wall. 3 o'clock Saturday, October the 19th, a mass sit-down of 4,000 people in Londonderry's main square begins. It's a protest of Catholics and some Protestants, young and old, rich and poor. Colette Quigley is a housewife.
Let me say at the beginning that I'm going on this demonstration, on this sit-down, regretfully. Basically, I'm going to sit down as a protest. I feel that in Derry, I am being treated as a political second-class citizen. I resent that. I feel that my dignity as a person is in question, and I feel I must go out and answer this question. I thought that the evolution of world thought that the wind of change would undoubtedly come to Derry, must sweep through Derry, but we haven't had as much as a zephyr in this time. I feel frustrated. My back's against the wall. I have been left with no other option but to protest in this manner. We must protest at the idle promises that have been given to us without any follow-up whatsoever.
The protest movement is forming at a time when the problems here in Londonderry are getting more of a hearing in the capital Belfast than ever before. But for ordinary people like these, talk is no longer enough.
Mr. Chairman, fellow citizens, this city of ours has had a very long history. A history of, as the Derriere says, sunshine and shadow, mostly shadow.
Since the partition of Northern and Southern Ireland in the 20s, the Northern government, Protestant Unionist, has reserved special powers to itself.
It has been used as
and
a
the
political
protesters
football
feel that these have undermined basic democratic rights in the North. John Hume, a Catholic businessman.
I am not a member of any political party. I have been largely engaged in social work here in the city, because I feel that the political setup as it exists here makes normal politics totally impossible. And until the situation is made much more democratic, and I don't think that elections will ever be fought on the normal social and economic issues. Therefore, the fundamental thing to do is to change the situation so that it is democratic, and then normal politics might start to play a more constructive part in the lives of the people here.
John Hume is a founder of the Citizens Action Committee, the protest organisers. He believes that religion should be taken out of the ballot box and that politics should concentrate on the crushing basic problems that face people like Mrs. Mary Macaulay.
My 4 sons and my husband have been unemployed for the past 2 years from the time in Derry that the monarch, the BSR, had the firm. Now that's 2 years past, so I was interviewed at that time, of course, and now it's 2 years, nothing has changed. I have 5 unemployed men, and they have got into depression so bad, and so have I myself, that when there is jobs, when there is a firm to take over, somebody's there to object to it coming to Derry, always at Stormont. They won't let anything come to Derry, which I think is a shame, being such the second largest city in Northern Ireland. I mean, this town has always been, Derry has always been known to be the same. And when there was work in Derry, it was just for women, and even the women now are suffering as well. But I think that it's the unfairness of the government, of all this discrimination and fighting, and all so unnecessary. We just don't know what way to turn anymore.
Ivan Cooper, a Protestant, ex-unionist, head of the Citizens Action Committee. Twice last week, right-wing extremists threatened his life.
The fundamental aims of the civil rights movement are to have peaceful demonstrations in support of homes, employment, the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, and of course one man, one vote. So Saturday's march is primarily, our main emphasis is on having a very peaceful march to demonstrate to the world at large that in fact our motives are peaceful ones, but at the same time with the hope of achieving fundamental civil rights in Northern Ireland.
Come along now. We realise it's uncomfortable. We are protesting against uncomfortable conditions. Surely we can endure it for 1 hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, October the 5th, a day that will be remembered in this city for some years, we held a peaceful march.
Ivan Cooper has good reason to plead for non-violence. Londonderry, just over 2 weeks ago, October the 5th. A civil rights march broken up by the police on the orders of William Craig, Minister for Home Affairs. He accused the civil rights movement of being a revolutionary plot to destroy the independence of the Protestant North. There's no doubt that the movement does contain some revolutionaries. One of those named by William Craig in Stormont, the Northern Irish Parliament, was Eamon McCann.
First to my mind, as it is usually posed, is a completely false issue. You see, when people like William Craig say that violence must be taken out of politics, they always mean take your violence out of politics, let mine stay. When sanctimonious politicians from both sides talk about taking the gun out of Irish politics down through the years, they have always meant take your gun out of politics. Every time I see a policeman in this city with his revolver at his side, I see a gun in politics.
October the 5th, and Craig's action drew together revolutionaries and moderates. James Doherty, Catholic councillor.
Thanks to Mr. Craig's arrogant action, he has welded together a lot of very odd bedfellows. I'm quite sure extremely left-wing people resent his arrogance every bit as much as people like myself and people even with right-wing views resent it. But he needn't dub us all by any single heading. He has got everybody with a radical point of view, everybody who values the rights of the individual and his dignity. He has got everybody lined up against him, and I'm sure he regrets it bitterly at this moment.
Again, Eamon McCann.
The issues facing the Labour Party and any political organisation are very well known. I make no bones about it. I don't want just to embarrass unionism. I want to destroy it. If Mr. Craig takes exception to this, then I can only say that I am not much interested in what or indeed whether William Craig thinks of my political ideas.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
Those who campaign for civil rights in Londonderry feel they share more than a song with civil rights movements elsewhere. They have even called themselves Britain's White Negroes.
We'll walk hand in hand.
To the party in power, the unionists, scenes like these are at best an over-dramatic response to a situation which is already being dealt with. At worst, a subversive charade to cause disruption. A leading unionist councillor in Londonderry is Leonard Hutchinson.
Do you think that it is unreasonable to demand one man, one vote in 1968 in the United Kingdom?
I think that that will come in due course, and that's under, we're thinking about that at the moment. That is, the Parliament is thinking of that at the moment.
You think it's a perfectly reasonable demand?
I wouldn't comment on that at the moment.
They say quite simply, every time your political position has been threatened, you've fixed the boundaries. You've done it 5 times in 30 years, and now the situation is that there are 8,000 people roughly who have no votes whatsoever, and in terms of the proportions, there are far more people in the South Ward.
Because that suits the people in the South Ward. Because the South Ward is a Roman Catholic ward. They live there, quite happy. We mix with them too, of course. There's no such thing as a white ghetto and all that nonsense at all. Again, I dislike the idea of Catholic and Protestant because we're quite happy here. The Roman Catholics have their own churches nearby. They have their own schools nearby. And it suits them to live there in that way. And in the South Ward, there must be about 90% of new houses built there since the war.
Yes, and your critics say that's quite deliberate. You've done it in the South Ward because if you did it in either of the other two, you would have transformed the political situation here.
That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. We cleared out all the slums of the South Ward. We have no slums to clear out in the North Ward.
For local elections, Londonderry is divided into 3 wards. In the South Ward live more people than in the other 2 wards put together, and they're mostly Catholic. Yet the South Ward elects only 8 councillors, and the other 2 wards 12. The result? An unbroken unionist minority rule for the last 50 years.
Well, I am one of 8 nationalist councillors. We represent a ward which takes in well over half the population, over half the parliamentary voters, and yet has a representation of 8 as distinct from 12 for the other 2 wards. That leaves us in a most invidious and ridiculous situation which inhibits our capacity to contribute as we think we could to the well-being and development of the community.
We want exactly the same rights as the people of Birmingham or the people of Coventry or the people of Doncaster. One man, one vote, and we won't be satisfied until such times as we get it.
In addition, then, we have this company vote, which is simply that a small company occupying premises with a valuation of as little as £60 can have 6 extra votes, 1 for each £10 valuation. And in view of the fact that the average valuation in the city is about £20, this makes a lot of these small companies virtually vote factories.
Business people have extra votes. Companies can have up to 6 votes. We have a voter in this city in local government elections who lives in Market Drayton in England.
I can speak objectively. I am fairly comfortable. My husband isn't in a dole queue. My children sleep comfortably at night. Therefore, I would say that the most important thing that we want to achieve is our electoral rights, electoral reform in the city. But I know this isn't the answer that you would get from the majority of the citizens of Derry, that housing is a crying need, and I know this only too well in that I've worked in housing for years and I know the great social evils that exist.
Housing in Londonderry is a major issue. Both sides bandy statistics. The civil rights movement claim that only 22 council houses were built in the previous 2 years. The Protestants say that 1/3 of the housing has been renewed since the war, a record as good as any in Britain. Between the arguments, the human reality. Patrick Coyle has lived 5 years in a condemned house.
We're just like animals. There's 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy, a wife and myself. are in one room, sleeping, a 4x3 room. And regards facilities, we have no toilet, nor we have no adequate supply of water. And each and every time we come out the yard, the sewage is blocked, and it's a sort of a handicap to the children, and they're never keeping the best of health.
Housing has always been a political matter here. All housing allocations are in the hands of one man, the mayor. No one else has any say in the allocations. Allocations have always been on a segregated basis. People are segregated on religious basis, and of course this is the key to political power in the city. Of recent years, all the sites within the city boundary have been built up. There are no further sites remaining. The answer to the problem was to extend the city boundary. They have refused to do this, and of course, because in so doing, the building of further houses would have upset the existing political balances. I have no doubt that housing is 100% a political matter in this city.
Well, the most significant problem is unemployment
Hugh
in the city
Macaulay.
at the present time. I've been unemployed now for over 2 years, and as far as the future is concerned, I don't see any hope of anything coming within the next year, never mind the next month. As it stands now, I would say about 50% of the men in this town are scattered all over England and further afield because of the unemployment situation. This shouldn't be, and this has always been since ever I can remember, and long before that. The men of Derry have always had to leave their home to go to work across the water because of the unemployment situation here.
And if our demands are not met, and this isn't a threat, it's my estimation of the factual situation that exists here at the moment. If they aren't met, I would fear that the frustration of the people would find expression in through the leadership of people whose ideas might not be so non-violent as ours.
There are many things wrong with it. On specific issues, we have a housing situation in which vast numbers of Derry people have to live in conditions that would turn the stomach of an Islington slum dweller.
There's a photograph published some time ago in one of the local papers here, a nationalist paper. And it showed a picture of 365 children, aged 5, who were entering a Roman Catholic school for the first time in the South Nationalist ward. Below that picture, there was another picture of 11 sets of twins. And last week, a Roman Catholic woman gave birth to her 26th child. So no council, no corporation of whatever colour could keep pace to the houses required for all these people.
On the franchise issue, we have a situation where one man in this town has 26 votes in a local government election. I'm a 25-year-old worker. I don't have a single vote. I resent that, and I intend to demonstrate against it.
I feel that there's no need for this demonstration at all this afternoon, because the people of this city are by and large a very happy community who live peaceably together, who work together, who play together. And if the people from outside the city who agitate these people would remain away and leave it to ourselves, we would still remain a quite happy, contented community.
The only people really stirring things up in Northern Ireland are the unionist government. You see, if the issues did not exist, it would be impossible to agitate upon them.
The kernel of the whole thing is that these people are out to expose this city here as best they can. And there's no need for it. We could have an inquiry today which would show our angle up to the very best advantage.
I am not advocating violence in Derry or anywhere else at the moment. I think it would be tactically lunatic to do so, and I am a pacifist by instinct, if not by conviction. But I do say that any violence which occurs in this area is the product of the conditions created and tolerated by the unionist government here, and the responsibility for it rests ultimately on them and on no one else.
In the North Ward, it is alleged that roughly 15% of the vote is made up of business and company voting. And this quite clearly is a very significant factor in returning a unionist majority in that ward.
That also is being examined by Parliament at the moment, and in due course we will know the result of that.
But you don't feel one way or the other?
I feel as it is at the moment, it's all right.
Do you feel that a man who has money and invests in a city has more right to have a say in the running of that city than a man who has no money?
I don't like the idea of a man who has no money in this city at all. I think that a man who has a lot of business in this city here and plows a lot of money back into it has a better right than a man who's perhaps unemployed. And that's no fault to the man who is unemployed.
But in holding this view, you must be aware that the unionists are very different from the Conservatives, for example, in England. I mean, no one now argues in England that money should result in some form of extra voting.
Well, in that case there, of course, you can't buy a vote. I'm not suggesting that in the least.
No, I wasn't suggesting you were, but you are suggesting there should be some correlation between economic power and political power in terms of a local franchise.
Well, the local franchise, I think that is all right. That a man who plows a lot of money into a business here, or plural businesses, that he should have a greater say than the average man who has no stake financially at all in it. And that's no fault of the man, by the way, who has nothing.
Of course not. But does it not result in the fact that the people who have nothing feel disenfranchised?
They may feel that way there, but very few of whom I know almost every person in this city here because I was born here. And I hear no complaints at all regarding local franchise from that angle. In fact, most of the people here are quite happy and quite contented.
Saturday was a successful non-violent protest in Londonderry, but there's little room for complacency. For even here was the smell of something thoroughly unpleasant and infinitely more ominous.
That he can do whatever the hell he likes. They have come over the past number of years and they have wrecked homes. They have come and they have entered the homes where working class people have had to struggle to buy their furniture. We're in a town of high unemployment and it's hard enough to keep a home. They came, and what did they do? They wrecked. They threw stuff in the backyard. They took away the breadwinner of the family. They took him away, and what did they do? They put them in jail without charge or trial. I say this. Even Adolf Hitler hadn't the powers that William Craig has today. And I also say this. In conclusion, I say to the people of Derry, I say to Democrats in Northern Ireland and Britain, are we going to be like the Jews? Are we going to sit down and watch all this happening? Or are we going to stand up and say, look here, Adolf Craig, we're not taking no nonsense.
The time has scarce gone round, boys, 200 years ago, when the traitors on old Derry's walls their faces dare not show, when James and all his rebel band came up to Bishopsgate, with heart and hand and sword and shield we crossed into the